everybody, welcome to Rock and Roll Shin-Soo Choo. My name is Gabe Estel. This is episode 20. Thanks for hanging in there. We have reached our 20th episode. I'm here with my co-host, Dennis Levi Leach and Jonathan Getz. How's it going, guys?
All right.
Good.
Glad to hear it. So, want to dive right in here with the lead-off portion of the show. Earlier this week, I think just a couple days ago, really, Kid Rock, Detroit native, Detroit area, I should say, called out Beyonce in an interview with Rolling Stone that he did, where basically he said that, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here, that she doesn't have kind of a, he was puzzled by how popular she is, and he doesn't think she has like an anthem. You know, like I think he cited like Sweet Home Alabama or Old Time Rock and Roll.
Two songs from his vast musical taste repertoire.
Yes, absolutely. And then he said she doesn't even have a Purple Rain, in her.
That's a weird
Yeah,
reference.
I know, right?
A weird comparison,
Yeah. I'm a guy that has always kind of had a lot of ambivalence around Kid Rock. I've never really dug his music, but at times over the years I've seen him and I think, he seems all right. He seems like an all right guy that, you could party with. But other times he opens his mouth and I think he sounds, sort of stupid, and also I think that he tries to like be the classic rock torchbearer a little bit too much. It all seems a little bit forced to me, and I've always joked with people that I think if you go over to his house, it's all greatest hits. I don't think he has any. I don't think he has any Bob Seger records that aren't like Bob Seger's greatest hits. I could be wrong, but I don't think he does.
A lot of the Masters series.
Right, exactly. I don't think he's gonna get into talking about Grand Funk Railroad B-sides or anything like that with you. So I wanted to see what you guys. First of all, I want to see what you guys thought of the dust up. I mean, to me, it's him being the dickhead. I mean, she didn't. Beyonce, whether you like her music or not, she's popular. She'll probably stay popular. She's in a high-profile relationship.
Oh, yeah.
She's married to another big musician. But I'll give her this. I don't see her talking smack, she's pretty harmless to me. I mean, it's just, I realize when a Beyonce record comes out, it's probably not for me,
Yeah. First, I would have to preface everything I'm going to say with, I'm not really a fan of either of them.
Same here. Yeah.
So...
musically.
Musically. And so part of that is, I think anybody who is that far across the spectrum from each other, they're going to look at each other and be like, how are they popular?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. They're kind of in competition.
Two
of the few people that are probably still selling a lot of tickets.
Yeah.
Album sales are probably not that high, but respectable.
I agree with the classic rock torchbearer thing. It seems like he's the only guy left that's really doing it. Like, The Darkness got popular for a little while, and what the lead singer of the Darkness, what's his name?
I don't know, Justin something.
Yeah, Justin. He was kind of a torchbearer for the classic rock sound and lifestyle for a little while, but now it's like all on Kid Rock's shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Grohl I would throw into that mix too. As he seems like a more sincere torchbearer.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't have to tell everybody he's the torchbearer. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't think Kid Rock has a Purple Rain either, though. You know what I mean? He like his closest thing would be his biggest selling album, which was the Devil Without a Cause, and that's nowhere near a Purple Rain level record.
I mean, I think he's had a lot of hit singles lately. I just don't listen to him. I mean, he's got that new song out that sounds exactly like Summer of '69. I don't know if you guys have heard it. It's called First Kiss. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It is cringe. To me, his music doesn't sound like classic rock. It sounds like new country to me.
And then he had that song that was about it referenced Sweet Home Alabama.
Yes.
And it was a Warren Zevon riff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
it
like,
was
wow,
both.
how
He
uncreative
stole
can you
both.
get?
He took both songs.
The
And,
dude's kind of a rip-off artist as well, you know?
It seems like it.
Yeah. Here's what I would call his music. Skinnered scraps is what I would call it. That's basically what it is.
I don't understand why he would try to compare or even reference Beyonce. I mean, he might as well be referencing an opera singer
Yeah, right.
or a hockey player who's really popular. I mean, it's totally different ends of the
Yeah,
spectrum.
right.
And if it's not his cup of tea, then who gives a shit? Like, why even
Right.
comment on it? You know,
Right.
it's puzzling.
I mean,
Just
she
to get
looks
publicity.
better after all this than he does, you know? I mean,
Oh, for
yeah.
sure.
yeah.
And then, yeah, you know, her social media followers will just eat him up, and he'll have to close his accounts.
I mean, I don't like her music, but she seems pretty classy, you know? I mean, she seems
Right. Right.
Yeah, you
right.
know, I mean, like I couldn't name one song on her, other that one that's like about a ring or something. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I'm not bothered by her because she's not making music for people who like Emerson, Lake and Palmer,
Right.
you know, like me, right?
Right.
You know,
I mean, she's a wonderful entertainer. I've seen her,
Yeah.
perform,
Well,
and she's really great at it.
I can say that I saw Kid Rock. He opened for Metallica the time I saw Metallica at Pontiac, Michigan, and he was entertaining, but it was on a whole like I'm selling you the whole thing, and that's how it is with her. You know, it's about the lights, it's about the dancers, it's about the whole production of the whole thing,
hmm
and you buy into that as a concert goer, and so that is the entertaining aspect of them.
Right.
And I would say they're both on near. I mean, they're near the same level as entertainment factors, but
yeah,
Right.
just different audiences. Yeah.
I just want to know:
Yeah.
does he have like an album coming out soon? Is he trying to get his name out there
he
just
is.
to get some
He
publicity?
had an album that just came out
Yeah.
like last week. Yeah.
So yeah, he's just trying to get some publicity.
Yeah, he
Right.
even commented on her figure, which kind of indicates how shallow of an argument he had.
He's like, I mean, I'm quoting. It's kind of a creepy quote. He's like, I like white women with big tits. You know, he said,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like, dude,
A fucking sleazeball.
you know, like, yeah, right, yeah. You married Pamela Anderson. That's obvious. All right. Yeah, it just his whole shtick. It all seems a little contrived to me. You know.
Right. Right. And it's
Like, I'm the
ironic how
guy- I'm the
contrived
guy
it
in the
is.
I'm the guy in the convertible that's got Freebird cranks. You know what I mean? Like, you know, well, great. You know, you don't have to tell it to. You don't have to. You don't have to tell me that. You know, I mean.
No, he's literally that guy
Yeah.
who had the 1984 Firebird that would drive around the neighborhood blaring Van Halen and Skinner tapes, and he
Just
never
figured
grew
out
up.
how to market that.
Yeah, he never grew up, and he's figured out how to market that as an adult.
Yes, that's very well put. You know, one last thing about him, and we need to move on. I also think the reason he's so popular is, and this is just me speculating. I don't have any figures in front of me. I think he's captured the new country crowd. You know, I mean,
Mhm.
that's a large portion of the listening market that actually still buys some albums.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah.
you know, that's why Walmart
Darius
sales.
Rucker.
Yeah, that's why
Mhm.
Walmart sales are. That's why
Walmart in
Walmart's record
specific.
sales are still
Yeah.
relatively high.
Yeah.
And I think he's captured that market because if you listen to his some of his newer songs, like, you know, his last 2 or 3 albums, they're definitely very radio friendly, hooky. You know, they could be played on a country station as
Yeah.
well as like a pop station.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I think that he's captured that audience. And from a marketing angle, I mean, you know, that's a good move.
Yeah,
You
pretty
know,
slick.
he's going on tour this summer, and I'm sure the tour will do really well. So yeah,
Maybe.
but it just maybe, yeah, the whole thing just left a bad taste in my mouth. She ended up looking better than him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
Kid Croc is what I'll call him. So anyway, moving on to baseball, guys. I want to talk about the first game. Spring training games are this week, So everybody's been down there for about a week and a half now or so. And I wanted to get from you guys, because I haven't followed the Cubs and the Royals that closely so far in camp. What positions do you have that could be up for grabs? Want to hear that, and then I'll share the White Sox. Because the White Sox have got a couple positions that are up for grabs still, and a couple slots that still need to be determined. So, Levi, why don't we start across town? You tell me what's going on.
Well, out in Arizona, the Cubs really, the main focus, obviously, this offseason is all at third base, and it's about Chris Bryant.
Yeah.
And the key is the Cubs aren't going to be able to bring him up opening day just for contractual reasons.
Oh, right.
That is creating an issue to where the opening day third baseman could possibly be either Michael or Tommy La Stella. And a lot of people are leaning towards the La Stella getting the job.
They got him from Atlanta last year,
I believe, right? Yeah, Atlanta. And I guess he has a decent on-base percentage, and a lot of people are thinking he's going to get the opening day job over Mike Olt. And so, as a Cub fan, I see their need as a backup is Mike Olt. They need to keep him, in my eyes, no matter what, because he's our only backup at first base besides Anthony Rizzo.
Yeah, I mean he's a corner infielder. You know, he could play either one. Probably first a little better.
Yeah, I mean if you look on the official Cubs depth chart, it's Anthony Rizzo and Mike Olt, and that's it.
You guys don't have Derek Lee anymore?
Mark Grace retired.
I think he's on the Marlins. Anyway, yeah. Okay, so third base is still kind of. Third base is kind of a question mark still.
Yeah, I mean, right now it looks like if we were to go today to Clark and Addison, we would be taking Rizzo at first, Baez at second, Tommy La Stella at third, shortstop is Castro. And then you'd have Coughlin in left, Fowler in center, and over in right would be Jorge Soler, and in catcher would be Montero. So
that could be a really interesting team.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, right now the starting lineup doesn't seem that awful.
No. I mean, there's a lot of young talent that needs to pan out. But
and that doesn't even. You're not even Alcantara or Alcantara, he's not on there, and you know what I mean? There's a lot of options that Madden's going to have to play with to insert in and out of this.
Be a fun season for you, man.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Hey.
At the same time, they need to fix this shit about players and their contracts regarding whether they're called up and whether they start the season with the team or if they're called up in June or July. Yeah. It's dumb. It's a technicality, and it ruins the flow, or it impedes the flow of a season for a team. And I don't know what you do to fix it, because I don't know all of the specifics of it, but it just needs to be fixed.
Yeah, it's like basically hold them back a month to gain a year
of team control, right?
Yeah, I know. It's kind of a lose-lose, you know. I mean, I don't like it either.
Yeah.
Well, interesting stuff, man. The Cubs really intrigued me this year. So I'm
looking forward to it.
Nice to hear an update. Jonathan, what about you, man? What's going on in Kansas City?
Well, one of the things that came up last year, the Royals signed Omar Infante, second baseman, for 4 years and $30 million, and at the time I thought it was a pretty good move. And
he hit 300 the year before with Detroit.
He did pretty well, and it was kind of their big move in free agency last year. Unfortunately, last year he was crap, both from the plate and with his glove. And so, in the meantime, Christian Colon, who was their first-round pick a few years ago, finally worked his way, after a few years through AAA, worked his way into the majors to gain a few dozen at-bats and actually played a role in the postseason. And, in Colon overall he's progressed slowly than they had hoped, and now at best, they're hoping that he'll be a utility infielder or something like that. He can play third base as well as second, and maybe even some short in a pinch.
So Infante starts still just because of the money, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. Infante because of the money, but at the same time, Cologne's on his heels, and probably at the very least there to spell him once or twice a week. And I, I think it's it's another point in baseball, this idea of, oh, we're paying this guy a lot of money, we have to play him, which I think
Right.
is kind of stupid.
Mm-hmm.
To throw good time after bad money,
Yeah.
regardless.
Right.
I mean, all you need to boil it down to is productivity.
Yep.
And whether you view it through the eyes of, well, we're paying him this much money, or we're paying the backup, in this case Cologne, this
Yeah.
much less money,
Yeah.
it should be a wash.
Right.
It's not as if you're going to go out and pay another $30 million for another second baseman to have on the team at the same time. Now that would be dumb. So I hope that the money doesn't play too much of a factor in the decision. At the same time, Cologne isn't a guy that's going to go out there and become an all-star, so he's really going to have to prove his worth. And that'll be the most interesting battle there at second base.
Cool. I won't belabor this point, but I am really puzzled by people underestimating the Royals. Like I see all these people saying they're going to win fewer than 80 games.
Yeah.
And we're going to go from a first World Series appearance in nearly 30 years to,
to sub 500.
having a below 500 record.
Right. And it's really fascinating because there were probably 5 years in a row where people were picking this team to finally finish over 500.
Right.
Granted, they did 2 years ago as well, but to make the breakthrough. So for 5 years, people have been predicting, okay, this year's the breakthrough. But this year, they're deciding, okay, now that they went to the World Series, they're going to fall back.
Yeah.
It's very unlikely that they make it back to the World Series. But to suggest that they'll win only, say, 72 games is kind of it's an interesting approach to the idea of potential and trying and expecting that potential to bust out, and then all of a sudden when it does, for granted last year it was only a few months out of the season that it really busted out. Once it does, then they expect a huge fallback. So it's fascinating.
I guess I don't get it when you have still a core of young players that are entering their prime. Somebody like Lorenzo Cain.
Right.
Your couple pitchers, Duffy, Ventura.
Yep.
Granted, you traded down with Volquez for losing Shields and getting Volquez, I think. But but I don't know. You were in it. I mean, you didn't have the resources to re-sign him. So
right.
What are you gonna do?
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. With the White Sox, the second base is up for grabs. There are really kind of four candidates for the job. Two of but I think it's really between these two young guys, and these names aren't really going to mean much to anybody outside of the White Sox fan base. But they've got a guy named Carlos Sanchez, who played a little bit last year, and then they've got a guy named Micah Johnson. And Micah Johnson, not last year but the year before, stole like 80 bags in Double-A, I think. So he's a speedy guy. But the hitting might not necessarily be there.
So he's like Billy Hamilton.
Yeah, right. Sanchez has a little bit of everything, but nothing great, in all of those categories. And dear God, I hope this isn't the case. We've re-signed Gordon Beckham, and I really hope Gordon Beckham doesn't return to second base. And the other option would be Bonifacio, who I like.
Yeah.
But I like him, but I don't think they signed him to start.
No,
they signed him to be kind of the super sub
utility guy. Yeah.
He can do anything but catch.
Yeah.
I mean, so I love having him on the team. I just, I don't think they signed him to be a starter. So same thing with Beckham as well. Hopefully, I think they brought Beckham back to be the utility infielder as well. Which I'll give Beckham this: he can play defense and he can play short and second or third.
What year will this be for Beckham? When was he a rookie?
He came up in 2009, and it was right after college. He was one of those ones. He didn't play a full season in the minors. They brought him up right away. He had some success, and then never returned to his rookie year level. They kept him, since the potential was there and he was a high draft pick. They kept him on a pretty long leash for a while. and traded him to the Angels last year around September, I think, and then re-signed him. For a pay decrease. I think he signed for $1 million or $2 million. But yeah, he's great defense, but just the hitting's never really been there. But at the same time, now I think maybe he'll be okay because I think he's expected to do less now that he's not
Pressure's off.
intended to be a starter. Yeah, the pressure's off. So all he's really got to do is fill in at second base if one of those younger guys doesn't pan out.
Mm-hmm.
And then also there are a couple bullpen slots open. Just two names I'll talk about quickly. There's a guy that used to play for the Twins. He actually played for the White Sox a couple of years ago. His name's Jesse Crane. He's a veteran guy. He probably will get one of those bullpen spots just due to his track record. I mean, say if he just pitches halfway decent in spring training. And then the other question mark is kind of what they're going to do with Carlos Rodon, the big draft pick from last year.
Right.
Yeah, I would think that he will start in AAA. He didn't get a lot of innings in last year at AA. And I think that, obviously they're grooming him to be like a front of the line starter, right behind Sale and Samardzija, particularly right behind Sale if we don't get Samardzija back after this year. So I don't see the point in rushing him. I would actually, even though I'm excited to see what he's going to do, I prefer that he starts in AAA just because I think he needs to get the innings under his belt.
Definitely.
Yeah. Because, there is some talk swirling around about, like, well, what if we start him in the bullpen and then, kind of move him up to a starter? That's what they did with Sale. I don't know. I figure, what's the point? If he's going to become a starter anyway, you might as well put him down in AAA so we can get the innings.
The Royals are kind of in the same position with Brandon Finnegan, who
right.
has gained the notoriety for pitching in the College World Series and the MLB World Series last year. And it's an interesting proposition because you have a guy who did come up and he was in the show and he performed when he needed to perform, but then the next year comes around and you're like, okay, we need to take a step back now and we need to if we want you to be a starter as opposed to just a bullpen guy, then we need to send you down and you need to kind of go through the steps that a lot of guys have to go through.
Yeah, I say why rush it, both those guys, the ceiling could be pretty high on both of them. So I'd it'd be better for the team, I think, if they just kind of took their time with those dudes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the heart of our order tonight, want to talk a little bit about, we're talking about sort of promotions as well as, kind of the marketing of music and baseball in this day and age, given kind of the climate. You've got an industry on one side where, the unit sales are in the toilet. And then you've got an industry on the other side with baseball that ticket sales, aside from in a couple markets, aren't really very strong, but the teams are doing well. I mean, baseball's still making a lot of money. And it's because of these lucrative TV contracts. But so the news that was out of the of the music industry, earlier this week was that release days typically have been on Tuesday in the United States. Those are going to be moved to Friday sometime this summer. And the logic behind that is to boost record sales and to kind of hopefully curb illegal downloading and file sharing. So to maybe make a release day, more of like it used to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is probably not. It'll probably never return to that. I wouldn't say probably. It definitely will never return to that. But so I want to talk about that. Kind of, we're going to share some of our release day stories, as well as what we think of that idea. Moving it to Friday. And then some of the kind of sort of memorable release day promotions and things like that from the past. So Jonathan, why don't we start with you, man? What do you make of this moving to Friday, and then what's your memorable release story?
Well, I think the move to Friday is and granted, this might be a little focused. It's kind of inside baseball, if you will, for a
Mhm.
lot of people. A lot of people may have forgotten that albums were released on
Right.
Tuesdays. But I'm somebody who, as Tuesday mornings, I'm popping open RDO, and I'm checking to see all the new releases.
Yeah.
Really having no idea what there might be, and I'm flipping through them and playing maybe 10 or 12 new albums that day, which is a far cry from how it was done 20 years ago. That's for sure. And so it's kind of a big deal, I think, because now you can make Fridays are events more than Tuesdays are events in our
Right.
society,
Yeah.
with the weekends, thanks to the labor union. And I think record stores could turn these releases into events, especially with the increased sales of and demand for vinyl, which more people might be going to record stores for vinyl now than picking up a new CD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you can turn that into an event on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, where it's Friday night, record store is going to be open late because there's all these new releases,
Right.
then you might build your community a bit more and stabilize it, and in a community that as a result kind of interacts with each other a bit more. Granted, me sitting in front of my computer and going through the new RDO releases isn't exactly a romantic notion, but I do
Right.
find a lot of stuff that way. And at the same time, I can see what other people are listening to that day. But I think it's a good move. Though there has been some speculation that this is a move to benefit the big labels and the big acts, and I don't quite understand it. There's been some quotes and some stories that this is going to be a problem for the minor labels and acts. I asked Love Garden Sound in Lawrence, Kansas, their opinion today about it, and they said six one way, half a dozen the other. It doesn't affect them in any way,
Right.
and I thought that was interesting. So I'm I'm curious as to how it's going to play out. At the end of the day, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference from a whole industry standpoint, but maybe more at a local standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Here in Springfield, Illinois, as you guys know, Recycled Records, their 2 days they get orders are Tuesdays and Fridays. So all it's going to basically do is switch the day the new releases. I mean,
Yeah,
they were always getting an order on Friday anyway,
Okay.
and
interesting.
so now it like the store you talk to, it's not really going to affect them much at all. And I like the idea, like Jonathan said, of turning it more into events. You know what I mean? People are more apt to go to a record release concert on a
Hmm.
Friday night than on a Tuesday night.
Yeah. Right.
And so, talking about that, yeah, I think hopefully maybe they can get more and more of a promotional aspect and tied into the weekend party type of a thing up,
Yeah.
like you guys said.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is kind of, I don't know. It's kind of a curveball, but like, I don't know, sponsoring things at bars. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, release parties, things like
yeah,
that. I mean, for an industry that needs kind of new ideas, that might
yeah,
be a good idea to tie it in to make it an event again.
yeah. And I've always
So
been interested in. I've always found it interesting when a record store isn't open late on a Friday, because I'm not somebody. Me and my wife aren't people who are going out to bars on the weekends, and that's not
sure,
really what we're interested in doing.
right,
And rather, admittedly, if we go out to eat, then afterward we might go shopping somewhere. But there's not a whole lot that might be open after that late on
Yeah.
a Friday.
right,
And ideally, yeah, I would just go into a record store and be perfectly content with spending 30, 45 minutes in a record store on a Friday night every week. And I'm always surprised when a place might not be open, because it just seems like a perfect opportunity, because not everybody is just looking to go out to drink on a
yeah.
Friday night.
And with Levi's idea about sort of record store release day concerts, I mean, what about for some smaller bands, smaller labels maybe? All right, I guess you could do it for big labels too if you had the right venue. Um, what about the admission charges? You got to buy the album. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's much like a book a book
signing.
tour, a
Like
book signing and tour,
yeah.
where your admission is buying the book.
Right. Right. And yeah, the book industry's been doing that for years.
Yeah.
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 It's another industry kind of going through some rough patches as well, but they know how to make the release kind of an event.
Well, and it seemed like the music industry had this in the 80s down to a science, man. If you look in the 80s, it was like JVC Jazz Festival, Miller High Life presents this rock concert. It was like the tie-ins and the companies were there, but I guess now the money's just not there, so nobody wants to promote like that again.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you used to be able to get companies to tie in with your either your label or your band or something.
Or bands showing up at Tower Records and doing signings.
Yeah,
like it'd be like the one in LA most likely, But
yeah. And actually, if I follow Amoeba Records in LA. Right there near Hollywood, and they're doing it. They have in-store events all the time. That place is packed. They have lines around the corner. And local places here do it. Mills Record Company is a place in Westport. They're always doing events. They just expanded into the neighboring space, and it's pretty remarkable considering.
Yeah, with some of these releases as well, how a lot of older classic rock artists are repackaging their albums with a lot of extra materials, a lot of supplementary stuff, whether it's live tracks or outtakes. It's weird because, the goal used to be, well, we want this album to reach as many people as possible. Now they're sort of aiming a little bit narrower and kind of going after the collector market, Like, let's say the Rolling Stones, even a band as big as that, come out with, Exile on Main Street, like they did a few years ago with that, the newer tracks or the supplementary material.
This past week was Physical Graffiti.
Right, Physical Graffiti earlier this week, yeah. Which, they know, the record label knows that, that's not going to really like fly off the shelves. It'll probably do okay, but they're aiming for sort of the collector's market now, which is, I guess what I'm trying to say is that the formula's kind of switched, It used to be cast a wide net. Now it's kind of like, well, let's go after the people that we know are definitely going to buy this. And give them and fatten the package. So, they turn out to buy it because there's a big incentive with all the supplementary material. So
they used to throw out wide nets. Now they just throw out crab pots.
You got it. That's exactly it.
And quite honestly, to send it back to Beyonce and artists like that who are still selling tons and tons of records.
Oh, yeah.
They're subsidizing the other bands on those labels because of those sales.
You got about 10 artists keeping the record and the major labels afloat right now. They're like, thank God for that guy that sang the Happy song last year. Anyway, I know his name. Okay.
Shout out to Pharrell.
Yes. Well, with release days, obviously the three of us are at an age where release days were still kind of a big deal for a little while, up until probably I'd say maybe 12 years ago or so. You guys got any memorable release day stories? I mean, I remember obviously when Pearl Jam's and the Black Crowes, two of my favorite bands, their albums would come out. I would go to the store and get it on the release day, and it was you would call your friends, you would talk about the record, etc. Now it's like it comes out on RDO and I listen to it in the background while I'm working on a spreadsheet.
Well, and so I have a couple, and. It was in an age before you didn't get to really preview the tracks before you bought the CD or anything like that.
You may have heard one on FM.
And so I remember two stories where we skipped lunch. Like we left school at lunchtime and drove to Best Buy to buy the CDs. And the one was Eric Clapton Pilgrim, and it turned out to be awful.
Right.
And
that was the beginning of his
downturn.
downturn.
Black Crowes by Your Side, and we were like disappointed somewhat with it.
Yeah.
I remember one that I was not disappointed with, and that was Evil Empire: Rage Against the Machine. A buddy who was maybe, I think, 2 years younger than me. We convinced his mom to drive us to Best Buy because I think he said he was going to buy like a Michael Jackson CD or something. And then we both came back to the car with Evil Empire and put it on, and she's like, "Oh my God, what is that?"
Nice, nice. Well, Jonathan, we shared some of release days. I remember
Actually,
us going together to buy some records.
By Your Side was one of them.
By Your Side was one of them. Very
Best Buy
cold
for.
January night, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then No Code, I remember buying with you. I think Vitalogy, I think, as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yield, I remember, running down right after class. That one was my freshman year of college, going to the local record store and picking it up. And, I had a schedule then where I could listen to it like 4 times on the day it came out, But yeah, so I miss that, certainly. I'm hungry for that nostalgia.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's, you mentioned Vitalogy, and you might recall that came out on vinyl 2 weeks before it came out on out on CD, and I happened to be down in Florida with a buddy. We were just down there at a condo that it was his grandparents, and that we were down there when it came out, and I was only 14 or 15 at the time, and so we managed to get driven over to a record store and picked up the vinyl, and then we went to a neighboring condo for friends of his grandparents that weren't even home because they had a record player, and we just sat there and we played it.
You had to work for it back
then. We did. We had to hopscotch Floridian condos to play records back in my day.
Right.
Yeah. Just to hear it 2 weeks early.
It 2 weeks early.
Good stuff. I was also going back and looking at some of sort of, I don't know, release day sort of gimmicks or promotions and things like that. And the one that comes to mind to me, and they would never ever do this again, was Use Your Illusion. I don't know if you guys remember 1991. Oh, yeah. I mean, just a ton of buzz around it because, there was a big, Appetite for Destruction came out in '87. Use Your Illusion came out in '91, and basically in the years between, they became pretty much the biggest band in the world, biggest rock band. Probably got the throne by Pearl Jam and Nirvana, really. So the hype around those Use Your Illusions, I remember just being huge. I guess I read a little bit up on it before the show, and the sales were really high, but the sales didn't necessarily meet the expectations. Like people, I guess a lot of analysts were like, "Oh, this is going to be like Thriller," like those types of sales, and it sold a ton of records. I mean, but just the idea of releasing 2 records on the same day, not sold together,
full length.
It's a double LP that they separated. That would never ever happen again. It's just like even back then it was a gamble. But GNR had so much leverage, at that time that they could have been they could have told Geffen, you know what, we're going to do a polka album. It's going to be 4 disc. They'd be like, whatever, because they knew it was going to just move a ton of units and then be followed by a stadium tour, and both of them did really well still. Use Your Illusion 1 within its first week. They were both released on the same day, September 17th, 1991. Use Your Illusion 1 sold over 600,000 copies, and then Use Your Illusion 2 sold 770,000 copies within the first week. So.
Which one was November Rain on?
November Rain was on number 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. What was there a single out before they were released?
Yeah, I think Don't Cry.
Don't Cry, yeah.
Yeah, so Don't Cry, I think is on.
Was that 1 or 2? Was that on 1 or 2?
Don't Cry, I believe, is on 1.
Yeah.
I always liked 2 a lot.
I like 2 better as well. I think the whole. We could have a whole other show on Guns N' Roses releases, but there's as far as there's some filler on it. Like
Yeah,
it's probably better if it would have just been like one album, like 14 or 15 tracks.
they could
Kind
have
of like a
probably trimmed some
meaty
fat.
one
Yeah,
LP.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's because there's a track or two that are just straight up like Faces cuts that
Yeah,
never would have made a single disc release.
right,
yeah.
right. So I thought it was I brought it up because it was very unorthodox, for the time,
Oh yeah.
to release, because I
It's
mean,
so
basically at that time, the CDs costs were pretty high. Like, you had to spend about $30, to get those two records, if not a little, yeah, about
Sure,
$30
sure.
probably to get those two CDs separately. So just the whole thing is
the
just,
marketing was just great on it. Like
it was,
it was so tied in that like I was a little kid and it was like I thought they were the soundtrack to Terminator 2, like
yeah,
exclusively. Like
absolutely.
it was like all one thing. Use Your Illusion and T2 and GNR. It was all just one big.
Yeah, everything
Yeah.
was lined up for those guys, man, for during those years. Also, one other one I'll mention before kick it back over to you guys. This didn't do as well, but as a Kiss fan, it certainly has its special place. Releasing 4 solo albums on the same day,
Oh
like
yeah.
that would never happen today.
Yeah.
Simultaneously releasing 4 solo records.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy.
And really Aces is the only one that really did well. It's the only one that had a hit single, and it's by far the best one of the 4. So yeah, but that's just another thing that was just
Oh, yeah.
you'll never see something like that again.
Yeah, the best thing about those records are the posters.
Right, right. I'll say Aces record's good.
No, Ace is good, but those
Yeah.
posters, you put like all 4 of them next to
put
each
all-
other,
yeah.
they're awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. But they didn't that actually releasing those 4 albums at the same time kind of marked the end of Kiss's heyday. I mean, they were still big after that, but like they released Dynasty, and that was, kind of a disco record. It alienated a lot of fans.
Oh yeah.
And then, once Peter left, popularity started to decline even more. So yeah, that was kind of the end for the golden era of Kiss. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. As far as with record sales, kind of being in the toilet and them taking sort of some drastic measures to retool how they sell albums. Do you guys think there's anything that you would like to see more offered, like in the concert or music industry? Like I was thinking, for a concert ticket, when I buy a concert ticket, because concert tickets are just, the prices are escalating so much. I know for a fact because we got Fare Thee Well tickets yesterday. I would like to see, like, maybe you get a code and you could download the show a day or two later,
Mm-hmm.
like, just it's when no matter how you buy the ticket, I'm assuming most people are going to purchase them electronically. So when you get the email that's got your ticket attached, or you get it in the mail, you've got a code on your ticket, and you get the concert for free, as part of the ticket price.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like too much to ask,
No.
and I just don't know why even bands that aren't really known for their live performance, why they're not doing that more,
Yeah.
It seems to me like it doesn't matter if it's One Direction or Slayer. I would think that the people that attend the show would like to probably have it. That's me.
Well, I think that to get back to Pearl Jam again, they dealt with this quite a bit over the years, starting with releasing their entire 2000 binaural tour on CD after the tours.
Yeah.
And then they got to the point where they kind of eliminated the physical copy, and then you could go get it from the website.
Yeah.
That couldn't have been cost effective, like releasing all that 2000 tour.
No, yeah, especially
like,
and
I loved going to the record
Yeah.
store and seeing 15 Pearl Jam
That's,
CDs.
Oh, yeah.
that's
That was
awful for the
awesome.
record store, though, because they hold all those. They don't know which ones people are going to end up buying.
Exactly.
And-
well, and it created like limited rare ones.
Yeah,
Some of
yeah.
them are worth more money than the others.
Sure,
Yeah.
the physical copy, yeah.
Right.
And then I think it got to the point where they, I think was it the Wrigley show that they were gonna, no, maybe not the Wrigley show, but at one point they were ready to burn CDs after the show outside the venue,
Right.
and I think they did it for a little bit, but then bailed.
The Crows did that for a
Black
time.
Crows.
Okay.
05. Yeah.
Okay.
The Halloween Riviera show.
Mhm.
Did they?
Well, I think that whole tour they did. I
Okay.
think.
Yeah,
I could be wrong, but
we
anyway.
got the discs from that Halloween show.
Did
that
you?
night.
So
Yep.
did you
Yeah.
wait in line? After
Waited
the
in
show?
line afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I
I
talking
just,
about Pearl Jam. Now it's just go straight to the website.
it does, but it's delayed. It
Yeah,
might be
yeah.
after the tour. They'll slowly release the shows, bit by bit. And I think they just realized that it wasn't worth the intensive effort to be focused on that one thing while they're on tour, for the result, for the sales that they were generating from it. And they're just like, screw it, we'll just wait till we get back. And that way, because you're on tour, it's an intensive environment where everybody's got their thing and you got to get to the next city as quickly as possible. And
What do you mean though? I mean, it's not like immense like uploading the shows or something.
No. Just the general staff that's in charge of that. I have no idea who that may have been. Maybe Brett Eliason on the tour for Pearl Jam. But and I'm not saying that they didn't have somebody that was their only job, but maybe they just figured out it's just not worth selling 175 copies of this concert hours afterward when you
Sure.
could just as easily sell 200 copies of it 2 months down the road.
Yeah, I don't know what's involved, and who's like. I know Fish has turned them around pretty quickly, which it's kind of weird that a lot of the bands that have always allowed taping, audience recording now, are putting their albums directly online. Usually the Fish shows are like the next day usually. But and they've got a big operation too, like
huge.
Pearl Jam.
But I totally see what you mean about big pop bands like One Direction or whatever, capitalizing and making some more scratch as they're sending them out the door.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just surprised more people haven't taken advantage of it because the technology's there. It seems relatively easy to do.
Yeah.
It's the modern day get your picture taken as you're going down the roller coaster.
Very good analogy. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm just surprised that more acts. I mean, a lot of our favorite bands do it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But yeah, it hasn't really caught on that much with other acts. So
for the one thing I would love to see with baseball is more. I mean, they sometimes call them like 70s nights, but more like loss leader nights, where it's like $10 tickets or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like just turn back the prices.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there needs to be at least like a mandatory 4 of those at least a season or something, just to give the people who possibly wouldn't have a chance at buying the $30, $40, $50
like good
a
seats
chance.
for $10.
Yeah. Just make it to where it's like $10, show up, make it like a general admission game, or I don't know, do something.
Food coupons, something like that. I mean, the food and drinks are where they're making the money, at the park now, because ticket sales, I wouldn't go so far as to say they're irrelevant, but they're not that important. They're not an important piece of the pie anymore. No. Right. That's why the Marlins can draw 4,000 people a game and still turn a profit, because they've got a lucrative TV contract. Yeah. They've got merchandise, whatever. So there's, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like these things that Levi's talking about with these deals, they could do those because,
they're not going to get hurt.
Yeah,
that bad.
Right, right. We're looking at like a half a dozen teams that consistently sell out games. Boston, the Cubs. Although I will say the Cubs not as strong as they've been. A little bit
some
weaker.
Years, yeah.
Yeah, and weaker. Come like middle of August or so, it's not that challenging to get a Cubs ticket. And that could change this year if they're competitive, but. But yeah, Boston, Chicago, St. Louis, Cardinals have a strong following. I guess the Giants, San Francisco definitely. But that's really about it. The Yankees, You know,
Yeah. It's a far cry from the NFL, where probably I assume a majority of the teams are selling out games.
yeah,
every week. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe not the Jaguars,
Of course, it
but
is different with football because the scarcity of amount of games a year.
sure,
That's a huge difference.
right, right. Um, cool. Well, some good ideas there, guys. And I want to, we'll talk about those online as well. We can exchange some ideas there. If you get a chance, everybody, make sure that you like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at letter N Chew. And we're getting to and also you can visit our lovely website, rockchew.com. So we're at the point in the show now where we give you some recommendations of music we've been listening to. It doesn't have to be new, doesn't have to be old, just what we've been digging on lately. So Levi, I'll start with you, and then we'll move it around.
Well, I mentioned an artist last week, the Count Buffalo, the
Right.
guys from Japan, and so that's kind of spun me on this whole course lately towards fusion. And so I picked up a record this last week. It's called Romantic Warrior by Return to Forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's Chick Corea, Stanley Clark, Lenny White, and Al Di Meola.
Yeah. It's kind of an
It's a great
fusion band.
yeah. It's a great album, and I find myself enjoying the music more now that I have a nice speaker set up. I got some new speakers for my turntable, and so all the albums sound new, and it seems like the fusion records just really stand out, man. They're recorded really well. I've picked up a few different ones besides that one, but they
pick up some Weather Report. Yeah.
yeah, I have Weather Report. I got like a GRP live, and GRP was like a jazz fusion label by Dave Grusin.
Right.
And so I have this live LP where it's Chick Corea, Dave Grusin, Lee Ritenour, and Diane Scher, who sings some jazz vocals, and it's great too. And so yeah, I've been on a jazz fusion kick lately.
Mahavishnu Orchestra. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Good. I like all that stuff too. Yeah. Some of those Weather Report live shows are really out there in a good way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
the first song of this album, this Romantic Warrior, I put it on and was like, wow, this is intense stuff, man.
It is.
Like sometimes it's literally just like four guys all going just crazy.
Just attacking it. Yeah, right. Good stuff, man. So Return to Forever. Jonathan, what about you?
I've got Beck's Modern Guilt. Obviously, a lot of people are familiar with this.
Sometimes a forgotten one in the catalog.
Exactly, and that's why I picked it out, because it is kind of forgotten and overlooked. And admittedly, I had done it. I got it, and I probably listened to it a few times and stashed it away. And then, I keep going back to it regularly throughout the year. And it's a pretty modest record. I don't think it's more than 35-40 minutes. The production is subtly awesome, and it's a hybrid Beck in between. It's more like Mutations in that it's not exactly Mellow Gold or Odelay, but at the same time it's not his Morning Phase or Sea Change, and right. It's a hybrid version of Beck that I really appreciate. This and Mutations are probably my two favorite records of his, and the production on this is just slick as hell in a good way. And Beck, Modern Guilt.
What year did that come out?
Good record.
It is 2008.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. 07, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a little older than that too, Levi. Great. Well, good stuff. For a guy that just, we're going on a over 20-year career now for that guy,
Yeah, for the supposed, inevitable one-hit wonder.
Right. Yeah, he showed them. So anyway, the band that I'm going to recommend, Levi recommended this band last week called Woe Fat. That's really good. And I would say these guys are sort of in the same vein. I don't want to, discredit them, and they've got their own unique sound too, but it's definitely kind of your sludge, stoner metal, There's a band from Columbus, Ohio that I like a lot called Lopan. That's LO-PAN. And they're named after one of the villains in Big Trouble in Little China.
Nice.
Yes, which is a phenomenal film. Lopan has 3 LPs out. And the one that came out last year, Colossus, I think was one of the best records of last year, and really kind of them really honing their sound.
Cool.
They've got another record called Sasquatch, and they've got another one called Salvador, and they're all great. So check them out. They've played with a band that I rant and rave about all the time called Torch, that I've talked about on this show quite a bit. They've played some bills with them as well. So I think the people, I guess what I'm trying, people that like Torch, that like Wofat, that like Caius, I think they'll definitely like Lopan. So their website is lowpandemic.com. So check them out. They play a lot around Ohio, but I think they're making a trek over to Europe too this year, which might be their first trip to Europe. I'm not sure. But check them out. Lopan. I think you'll really dig them. Really, really, really just monster riffs, and just some sludge at its best.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
yeah, good stuff. All right. Well, on that note, then, we're going to close out episode 20. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to remind everybody of how you can check us out. You can visit us on Facebook. Like our page, please. Tell all your friends to like it. You can follow us on Twitter at RockNChew. That's rock in, letter N, Chew, CHOO. Also, that's the handle on Instagram as well. Follow us there. We're always posting cool pictures of baseball stuff and vinyl and all kinds of nice visual treats for you. And also, we've got a gorgeous looking website that just went up about a month ago or so, and it's Rock Chew. So RockChoo.com. So we've got some blog posts going on up there.
Yeah, join the conversation on
Absolutely.
Twitter. Tweet at us what you're listening to.
Tweet
comment
us what
on
you're
the
listening
episodes.
to. Yeah, take pictures of baseball cards. Share those with us. We've got a lot of cool stuff going on. A lot of the bands that we reference during the show, you can find videos of them all in one convenient place on our website, so you can check that out. Definitely go out and buy and stream legitimately their music. Support them as well when they come around. So, good stuff, guys.
Right on.
And we will see you for episode 21 real soon. Take care, everybody.